Doctors have issued a warning about vaping after a teenager almost died from respiratory failure. Ewan Fisher was 16 when he started vaping in an attempt to give up cigarettes. But after 4 months of using an e-cigarette, the teenager suffered an allergic reaction that saw his lungs collapse. Well, having recovered, Ewan is today celebrating his 19th birthday and is now urging others not to take up the habit. And he joins me now. Hello to you, Ewan. Firstly, happy birthday. And thank you very much indeed for talking to us here on Sky News today. Let's talk about where it all started. You were a smoker. You wanted to give up cigarettes, so you took up vaping.
Yeah, that's correct. I was smoking quite a bit. And then I wanted to take up a boxing career, so I stopped smoking cigarettes and moved on to e-cigarettes, vaping, to try and get a bit fitter so I could go on more like runs and last a bit longer, as I wanted to take it up as it was one of my main hobbies. But then obviously I've never been able to proceed with that because of what happened with me within hospital.
So tell us when you first started to feel unwell, Ewan.
It was 2 weeks prior to, I stopped vaping 2 weeks prior to going into hospital, and it was because I started to cough and choke. So, like, I had to do that because my chest was getting tight and I was having to gasp for air by coughing. And one night, the day before I went into hospital, which was also the day before my first GCSE exam, my mum took me to Queen's Medical Centre, A&E, because I was choking and it was getting out of hand, really. And they took me in the room and put me on a SATS machine, and they sent me back out and said that they'll check up on me again soon. And it took a couple of hours, and then my mum shouted up to someone and they took me back in, and all the machines started going off, and from then they rushed me into the side room on cannulas and oxygen, and it just went downhill from there. And then I ended up on 2 or 3 life support machines.
Yeah, it all happened very quickly, didn't it? Your condition worsened to critical. How long were you in hospital for, Ewan?
Well, all in all, I was in hospital for 2 months, but it was 35 days before I got released the first time, and then I was still falling ill most days when I was at home. So within the week, I was sent back to Queen's Medical Centre, where I spent more time there. So all in all, 2 months.
Yeah, and you developed respiratory failure. Doctors believe it was caused by that vaping.
Yes, that's right. They've put it down to hypersensitive pneumonitis.
Yeah, hypersensitive pneumonitis. So something you were breathing in, just to explain to people, was triggering your immune system, and that led to this snowball effect that ended up with you on the ECMO, the bypass machine, the heart-lung bypass machine, effectively. How are you doing now, Ewan?
I'd say I'm about 80% back to normal, but I've still got a bit in me where I need to get a bit stronger, and I want to get back to my old self, because it messes with your mental health as well as your physical.
Yeah, you said it was the day before your GCSEs, so as well as the health implications, you also missed taking all of your GCSEs, didn't you? Your boxing career that you wanted to begin, it's had a massive impact on your life.
Yeah, it did. I missed all my GCSEs, but luckily I sat maths and English not too long after coming out of hospital, actually, and passed them both. So that was good. And for boxing, I can't do it anymore, but I'm hoping that one day I could do a bit of coaching.
What's your message then, having been through what you've been through, Ewan?
Please try and stop vaping, or don't do it at all, and especially to people that don't smoke cigarettes and start to vape for no reason. Just don't do it, because I don't want nobody in this world to end up like how I was. I don't wish it upon my worst enemy, because it messes with you and your family.
What do you say when you hear Public Health England, for example, saying that actually vaping is much better for people? It's 95% safer than cigarettes, and that this is the better option?
Obviously, I can't believe that now, not after what happened for me, because it's nearly ended my life and it's caused so much drama for me and my family. So I won't believe that, but until it's proven, then nobody can give an exact figure.
OK, Ewan, stay with us for a minute because I just want to bring in John Dunne now, the Director of the UK Vaping Industry Association. Hello to you, John. When you hear Ewan's story and what he has been through, almost lost his life as a result, doctors tell us, of vaping, what do you say to that?
Well, we're very happy to hear that Ewan is get back to health. But what we've got to understand with this situation is that it's extremely rare. You're looking at about 6 to 8 cases of this over the last 10 years. And when you consider that there's 3.6 million people in the UK vaping and over 60 million worldwide, it really puts this in perspective. Now, my understanding of this case is that Ewan was hypersensitive to and allergic to a certain liquid. So that's really what we've got to understand is how that reacted with him from his allergy perspective.
Do you accept, though, that Ewan's plea to young people, those that don't smoke already, because, as we've said, Public Health England say this is 95% safer than smoking, but that vaping products are deliberately attractive to younger people because they are sweet flavoured, they are dessert flavoured, they are deliberately attractive to younger people who didn't necessarily smoke in the first place?
Well, I absolutely agree with you, and I don't think that anybody who doesn't smoke should be using vaping products, no matter what age they are. But I disagree with you in relation to flavours and young people taking up vaping. If you look at Action for Smoking and Health's recent figures, and this is backed up by NHS figures as well, they show that around about 1.7 to 1.8% of young people are vaping here in the UK, and the vast majority of those, like you and previously smoked. Now, the uptake in young people of never smokers is around about less than 0.5%, which is around normal for teen trial of other substances like alcohol, for instance. So
why then in Europe have they banned flavours? And are they very concerned about the impact that flavours are having in drawing young people in at a very young age into something they didn't need to be doing in the first place?
Well, there's absolutely no evidence to back up that flavours are encouraging young people to vape. And there's also no evidence that vaping is a gateway to smoking. Those figures just don't exist.
What about the concern in the United States, then, of what is described as an epidemic of teen vaping and some 40 deaths, 2,000 hospitalisations that have been linked to vaping?
Well, first of all, the US is a very different situation. First of all, the outbreak of deaths in the US are related to specific types of liquids. They're THC liquids, which are the psychoactive ingredient in cannabis. And within those liquids itself, it's a specific additive that was being used. So it's a vitamin E acetate, which is used to cut those liquids to make them stretch further. So it's a very different situation. The second thing to consider is that the UK, unlike the US, is a highly regulated environment from what can go into e-liquids, the testing of the liquids, manufacturing process, but also advertising. So in the US, for instance, you're seeing a very different situation arising that we have here in the UK.
Ewan, you've been listening into that. Let's bring you back in. John Dunne saying that it is extremely rare to have a reaction like yours and that young people are not being deliberately targeted, that it's just a small fraction of non-smoking youngsters that are taking up vaping?
I don't believe that because I know quite a lot of people myself. Like, I know it might be a small percentage, but I know a lot of people that's gone from doing nothing to vaping because it tastes well and they just get big clouds out of it, which don't make sense to me personally. But as was said, it did state figures.
John, is one case like Ewan's one case too many?
Well, I don't think so. You've got to put it into perspective here. There's 220 people a day in the UK alone die from smoking-related illnesses. And even from food allergies, for instance, you know, 2 people die in the UK every single day. So much as I appreciate Ewan's situation, it is very unique and something that, you know, with 60 million people worldwide vaping, we're really not seeing that often.
OK. Thank you both very much indeed for your time. John Dunne from the UK Vaping Industry Association and Ewan Fisher, thank you very much for telling us your story.